I'll start with language, why not? If you get a chance to look at their books very quickly, you'll see that they have all come on an extremely long way in this year. I had children who couldn't write anything by themselves, children who weren't sure of all the letter sounds, children who could write lots, but I could hardly read it, children who could write lots, I could read it, children who could write lots but never left a gap between a word, children who didn't form all the letters properly, children who could write and it was perfectly legible but couldn't perhaps spell some of the high frequency words correctly, children who wrote a whole page with no full stops, and everybody, wherever they started, has made masses of progress. So we're really pleased, and sometimes even we don't realise until you look back to the September work and think, oh, wow. So hopefully in the next term we'll refine all that we've started with. And the push is basically now for all of them to write more, for year 2 especially to write stories from their own imagination rather than rewriting stories that I've told them or that they know already. To use adjectives, to think about describing words and atmosphere, to put full stops in. You'll still be hearing about full stops when they're about 10. But also thinking about things like apostrophes with some of them. Once they know about apostrophes, they put them in everything that ends with an S. And we did Jack and the Beanstalk last week. We're into this one. Well, you don't know the story, Jim and the Beanstalk. The giant gets him to go and fetch things for him. Because he can't read, he needs glasses. Because he can't eat, he needs teeth. And then the giant writes him a lovely letter at the end. It's really sweet. So it's just showing them this week that the story that they've known since they were tiny babies can be changed and adapted, and that's one way of getting them to write a story of their own, by saying, can you change the end? Can you add another character? Can you change the beginning slightly? And it's a good way of showing them. I often talk about fairy stories with them and say, because they were passed down orally, not everybody says the ending in the same way. Not everybody has exactly the same characters. The Three Little Pigs sometimes ends very gruesomely, and sometimes ends in a lovely fairy tale way that nobody believes is true. They like the gruesome one better. We're talking a little bit about healthy eating and different fruits and vegetables and things, and the story of Handel's Surprise is really lovely. Introduces them to lots of tropical fruits, and that which we'll be having tasting sessions for, but I'll talk about that later. And after the holidays, when we talk about our island, I love Katie Morag. Who's seen Katie Morag? It's actually very well made, I think. But the Katie Morag is based in Scotland. She lives on an island, obviously. There are fabulous programmes on the television now that I will be using. And there are lots and lots of different stories about Katie Morag. She has a very nice simple punctuation describing characters. Things like jumbled sentences is quite good. If you write down a sentence but the words are all in the wrong order, can they read it and make it make sense? Things like the enormous turnip, how to look after a plant, all those kinds of different types of writing activities. Some of them write writing stories, some of them don't. Some of them are really good at writing lists. Unfortunately for them, I have to get them to write all of them, but there will be something for everybody. Maths, usually the next one to start with. So, odd and even numbers. We'll start with year 1, or the children that are at that level. Counting in 5s and 3s. They've done an awful lot of work on counting in 5s. They can count in 5s to 20 or 50 or 100. And look at the patterns. Counting in 5s always ends in a 0 or a 5 when you look at the 100 square. So they can work out, and tell me, can they tell me, well, why wouldn't 34 be in count of 5? Can they explain that? Number sequences, can they put a range of numbers with gaps in it in the right order? Do they have a vague idea of what 35 is? Is it more or less than 27? That kind of thing. Making sure they use plus and minus and equal sentences when they... not sentences. Symbols. When they write a number sentence. Now, not in year 1 writing them in columns, I'll go on to that in a minute, but writing them horizontally. And can they say and use the words for addition and subtraction and plus and minus and total and equals, using all those correct vocabulary words, not the babyish ones, and the more different ones you use right from the beginning, the easier it becomes. Talking a little bit about money, finding totals. Change is hard. Money's hard. You know, show them 5 coins. Oh, I've got 5 pence is the beginning, isn't it? If they're adding up 2s and 1s, tap twice on a 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is an easy way to add up with pennies and 2. Time now, o'clock, plenty to start with. Although if you're showing them, if you've got a play clock at home, make sure that the hour hand is actually between the 2 numbers. It does help if they learn it right from the first time. There's no point having the minute hand on the half past. It may as well, you know, the minute hand can be, but the hour hand does need to be between the 4 and the 5 if it's half past 4. There's no point having it on the 4. You know, so start from the beginning. Once they've got o'clock, half past, quarter past, quarter to, and then usually by then they've got enough understanding that there's 60 minutes in an hour that they can work out the 5 minutes. Year 2, counting in steps of 3 or 4, we've counted in steps of 4 to at least 30 again, like the year 1s. We've looked at the patterns, what do the multiples of 3 end in, and we worked out, oh yeah, they're all, you know, the same numbers. What do the patterns of 4 end in? Oh, they're all even numbers. Things like that you're trying to get them to look for. Right, knowledge and understanding of the world. An awful lot this half term about planting, talking about roots and stems and flowers, and hopefully the potatoes will grow. And if my father tells me how to do it once more, on top of it. The plants have roots and leaves and stems and flowers, and plants provide food for humans. Now, we're doing all this growing our own here. What's the balance against growing our own is going to a supermarket. So there is a trip arranged to go to Tesco. By then they'll know loads and loads about plants, and they'll blast them all with how good it is to grow your own and how much better it is for you. But then we'll go to the supermarket and see how that you're allowed to go around the back, and they show you how, you know, the millions of things they get in, and go into the bakery and find out how they're moving on from that. We're going to do an awful lot about resources and not wasting resources, and recycling, and we're going to start a compost bin so the fruit won't be thrown in the bin anymore. Talking about saving energy, recycling, that kind of thing. The sports day runs smoothly. You'd be amazed at the stuff we actually have to practice. Like, can you all stand one box, and there's the line run to the end, and yeah, it's amazing. It is slightly easier than doing it on the street, but and then Welsh, there's a really good stuff on Hub on the web, Darllen there's books that, you know, like the interactive books that you can change the page yourself and stuff. So that's the series we're going to be working on, and then asking questions, asking Wyt sy'n hoffi, do you answering, and asking for things. Obviously we're only talking about really basic Welsh,